I think this could start maybe a bit poorly. Maybe you have some bad results in the Champions League and you're wondering from day one, is he going to get this right? But I think he is under a lot of pressure to get off to a good start.
Not a great season for any of these three sides last term. Arsenal, AC Milan and Real Madrid, a big fat goose egg in terms of trophies won by them in 24-25. Incidentally, if you're wondering, the last time that happened was back in 2020-21, where none of these three sides won a trophy over the course of the season. So we're going to focus on the three of them and the managers that they've got, who are sort of under a bit of pressure. I mean, you'd think Xabi Alonso, he's under pressure always, isn't he, being the new Real Madrid manager. There was a lot of hype, wasn't there, Witty, when he came in? But do you think the performances that we saw at the Club World Cup were kind of the expectations coming back towards reality for the Real Madrid fans and Xabi Alonso?
I don't think there are expectations coming back towards reality for Real Madrid fans. They expect to win. They expect to win everything. They expect to win the Champions League and La Liga and dominate in doing so. There is no equivocation. And I think some of my fears, albeit you look at the game against Paris Saint-Germain, first off, a lot of teams have gotten throttled by Paris Saint-Germain, and it really started with two mistakes you couldn't really blame on a manager. But what I did see, though, throughout the Club World Cup were moments where it looked okay, but moments where it clearly was a process being implemented. And this is what I fear for Xabi Alonso at Real Madrid, is that this is not a process club. This is a get results club. And so I wonder if this is the right appointment in terms of, are the fans going to be patient? Is Florentino Perez going to be patient? I have some figures. So you look at the managers, obviously Ancelotti and Zidane represent a period of stability, which is frankly atypical for Real Madrid. Prior to him, Santi Solari was originally an interim coach, only managed 28 games in charge of Real Madrid. Julen Lopetegui, remember the chaos around the World Cup in 2018 when he took over while being the manager of Spain? He only ended up lasting 3 months in charge, only coached in 14 games. Rafael Benitez took over in 2015. He only lasted 25 games. Manuel Pellegrini only lasted 1 season. Fabio Capello only lasted 1 season in charge of Real Madrid. This is a club where if you don't get it right from day one, there is a very real chance that you will pay for it with your job. And this is not an easy job either. We see Mbappe there on the screen. We talked all summer long and all season long about the balance issues that they have as a football club. So I am a bit worried for Xabi Alonso because we know that Florentino Perez is a quick trigger, and we know that this fan base does not have a lot of tolerance for, oh, we're figuring it out, we're implementing our style of play. This is not a style of play football club.
We talked to Rafa Honigstein the other day with context to Bayer Leverkusen. He made a really interesting comment. We were talking about Erik ten Hag and will he get the opportunity to sort of rebuild his career there. And he said that Leverkusen is a great club in German football because it's kind of away from the limelight. Even though they've had success in the last few seasons, there's not a huge media presence. You're not looked at in the same view as a Bayern Munich or Borussia Dortmund. And Xabi Alonso profited from that, turning that club into what it was over the last couple of seasons. The polar opposite of what he's going to experience is what you've been talking about there at Real Madrid. Will he have the sense of personality and the ability to juggle the plates and spin the plates, that, to use a phrase, that he's going to have to do at Real Madrid, particularly if it starts poorly next season? I
think he can. I think he has a lot of credit in the bank, being a legend at the football club, having achieved what he achieved at Bayer Leverkusen. If there is to be some margin for error, it would be for someone who's done a lot for the club and for someone who implemented something at Bayer Leverkusen that was incredibly special. But even in watching that Bayer Leverkusen team that dominated, it was a team that made some mistakes, that had some process errors, that gave away some cheap goals, that didn't always defend brilliantly and didn't always cover themselves in glory, while then also turning games around and doing things fantastically in the end. I think he's got a lot of pieces to figure out. You look at this group of players right now, we don't even see Jude Bellingham in there because there's so many attacking players to figure out a place for. I think this is an interesting side in terms of actually figuring out what the right combination of pieces is, because Rodrigo could go, Vinicius could go. We talked about that on Friday on Scoreline as well. There are so many things to figure out, and you're kind of in the middle of a transition. You don't have a lot of depth. There's some players that have some injury issues as well. And so I think this could start maybe a bit poorly. Maybe you have some bad results in the Champions League and you're wondering from day one, is he going to get this right? But I think he is under a lot of pressure to get off to a good start. Yeah, Bellingham, one of those players. I think it's October. He might get back for the first El Clasico towards the end of October. But there are some significant areas in this team where they're not as strong as they could be, given the players they've got at their disposal. Let's move it on from Real Madrid to Arsenal. Of the three clubs and managers that we've focused on for this section of the show, for me, Mikel Arteta is the one who's under the most pressure to deliver. You cannot keep
finishing second, getting close, for a club that has aspirations to win the Premier League title, you've got to get it done eventually.
Yeah, I don't know. We talk about this a lot with Arsenal. I am a bit more lenient than other people are. Even the notion that they had a bad season last year, I think getting to a Champions League semi-final for a club that had gone a long time without, for me, a major European achievement was something worth celebrating. But it took a step back. They finished 15 points worse this season than they did the year before. And I agree with you to a certain extent that Arsenal have pushed and pushed, and it's time to get over the line.
Especially if they get Gyökeres,
right.
If they give him what he wants and what this team
but
is
Adam, I mean,
missing.
I understand what you're saying. There is, though, a part of me that this Premier League is going to be hard to win next season.
Yeah.
We see Liverpool, who just won the league. Look at the transfer window that they've had. They went for Wirtz and Frimpong, and they're going for Ekitike, and they got Kirkesh in. That's 300 million worth of spending, and it's a damn good team. Manchester City, as you mentioned, Tijani Reinders and Ryan Cherki and all these, Ryan Aït-Nouri on the left side, all these players they brought in. We know that Guardiola can get that side whipped up. So it's incredibly difficult. And so I agree with you in the overall that Arsenal at some point have to win something. We talked about this, that I don't think the FA Cup or the Carabao Cup is enough. They got to win something major. It's going to be incredibly difficult for them to do so.
Let's project then. If, for example, they do finish second or they don't, finish in the top four, they get Champions League for the following season, but they don't win the title and they don't win the Champions League, do you think Mikel Arteta is still in charge the following season?
We don't really know, I would say, the political dynamics within Arsenal, because maybe he is so interwoven with how the club does its business that it would be difficult to break from him. They built this project around him. It might be difficult to change, but
like
I almost think
Diego Simeone thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think they would have to try something. They would have to try something else. I think it's been 7 years now. We look at the transfer spend as well. They're finally starting to sell some players, so you offset that a little bit, but it's still a lot of money to have spent, particularly over these last 5 seasons, and not get something done. So I think it's about time for them to go and do something, and I would not necessarily be opposed if it doesn't happen. If you say, let's try a new voice, let's try and get one of the other top managers in European football to come in and see if something different can happen, even a Julian Nagelsmann after the World Cup, something like that, just to see if a different voice, a different identity or idea can get this done for Arsenal, because, like I mentioned, this is incredibly difficult and might take someone maybe a level above where Arteta is now to get it done.
Let's move it over to Serie A. We've discussed the issues with the hierarchy at AC Milan and the fact that they've got these decisions wrong, really, in the last few managerial choices that they made after Pioli. We had Fonseca come in. He didn't do particularly well. Conceição started well, won that trophy, didn't we? We thought it was going to all change, and it didn't. And now they've brought in Allegri, which is a bit of a pivot in terms of the way that we'll see them play. Is the pressure on Allegri, or is the pressure also on the hierarchy at AC Milan to prove that they can choose a good manager for the club?
Yeah, and I think the fans are on top of them. They chant against the ownership all the time, and the fans have proven it almost at time, not quite an obstacle, because you don't want to talk about a fan base that way, but they've proven people that will hold them accountable, and I think might inhibit their ability to implement something like a process. So they went for Allegri, who I think is a bit of a short-term answer, who's going to try and lock them down and make them solid and figure out a new way to manage the club. I still think they have a lot of transfer business to do, but I think the biggest thing that they did was they overturned 2 of the 3 big stars. Reinders, Theo Hernandez are gone. It's really only Rafael Leao and Christian Pulisic that remain. We'll see if Leao even remains through the end of the transfer window, but I think they have a lot of things to figure out. You're going back to Emerson Royale and Alex Jimenez maybe on the other side, and this is a team that, for me, I don't think is ready to go and win Serie A, is, for me, kind of pushing for trying to get in the top 4. Never mind go and actually win something. I think the case for it is what Antonio Conte did last season at Napoli, that maybe there are other teams in the league that fall off, that aren't quite there to hit their level. They don't have European football, and so week in, week out, you can grind out results. But I don't think they have the level of talent in order to do that, as it stands.
What would be good enough for the fans? What would be considered a success, given that some of those players have left, the starting 11 that we've seen there? What would they be happy with?
This is sort of an indefinable trait, but I think some sense of pride, some sense of spirit, some sense of endeavor, where I think the fans can get behind the team. That usually only comes with winning. But, man, there are times you watch Milan in the last few years, and it's just languid and uninspiring. And even in some ways, I think the fans might regret running up Pioli, because you had Milan finishing second. But there was this feeling that the club wouldn't deliver to their potential, wasn't delivering week in, week out. I'm sort of describing something intangible, but I do think that the fans have to get behind the team and feel like they are reflected on the pitch. Their level of passion and connection to the club is reflected on the pitch. And I think you can say that that has not been the case in the last few editions of Milan since they last won the Scudetto. So I think that's the most important thing, is I think regaining some of that feeling, and obviously some amount of winning, challenging Inter in derbies, getting towards the top of Serie A, maybe winning a trophy, and feeling like at the very least this turnaround is on.
Just really quickly before we go to break, how do you think Allegri is going to approach dealing with the hierarchy at AC Milan and the difficulties we've talked about, and how he manages the fans as well, the expectations from them? Because it's fair to say he's no shrinking violet when it comes to his personality, makes his feelings known. How is he going to navigate the politics at AC Milan?
I think it's a difficult one, and they have a new sporting director as well, and they're presumably working hand in hand on building towards his identity. I'm curious how much they lean in towards his identity, because it's kind of atypical from what you see in modern football. It's a different style. It's cortomuso, it's trying to get over the line, being defensive, and winning by small margins. I wonder if that will marry up with what the football club wants to be in the longer term, but I think he will say, I want my players, I want to do it my way, and they'll try and figure it out. And like you say, it is kind of a my way or the highway kind of manager, and he's going to want to do it his way. So I think that's going to be a really difficult one, especially when, again, we're talking about getting fans on side. One of the most difficult things to do is to play boring football and try and get the fans on side. It's not going to be the most entertaining. It's not going to be the most exciting ways. It's about grinding out results, winning games 1-0 or 2-1. So I think it's going to have to really be with results that you get the fans on side. You get victories, you show up, you pay a ticket, you go, you know what, I'm not seeing the most entertaining football match today, but my team won, and that makes me happy at the end of the day.